Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. I am super excited to have everyone tonight to join us. We are here for a very sensitive topic tonight. We'll be sharing about domestic violence. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, Prevention Month, and so we'll be talking about domestic violence on tonight. Thank you for joining us and being here with us. So, as we get started, I would like to share the mission of Little Hands Big Hearts and first introductions of myself. My name is Dr. Nikki Anthony. I am the founder and the ED for Little Hands Big Hearts, Little People Service Organization. This organization was founded with children in mind, at heart, to develop children into the next generation of servant leaders. But we realized that these little babies go back into families. And so we have developed programming that supports the whole family, basically. And so tonight is nothing less than that. We call them family impacting sessions, and these sessions are designed to help families get information, obtain information that is going to help them grow healthily forward. So, thank you for joining us tonight. I do ask that you all push the share button so we can get as many people involved in this conversation to get the information, to get strategies, to get help and support um, out there. All right. So I'll share our mission. The mission of Little Hands Big Hearts, Little People Service Organization, is to develop little people into servant leaders who think beyond themselves for the greater good through explicit and intentional opportunities for character development, selfless service to others, and community based volunteering. I did share that tonight's purpose is. To bring awareness to domestic violence, but it's a little bit of a twist tonight. Normally, how we are introduced to domestic violence is violence against women, and that is nonetheless true on tonight. But we're going to look at it from a different perspective in terms of domestic violence against men, hence our title, Domestic Violence Too. I have two wonderful guests, and I'll introduce them. I'll let them share some more about themselves just here shortly. But the first guest is Sonia Anthony McGee, and Anthony is not a mistake. She is my aunt, and she's joining us tonight. She is mom of the person that will be sharing about his life tonight, and she has turned into an advocate because of his story that you'll hear a little bit later. So that's Sonia Anthony McGee, and then our resident mental health expert. He has been with us for a couple of segments, and I'm very um, just thankful that he chooses to kind of go on this journey with this organization and help us to bring real time, good information about mental health in different arenas and how mental health impacts the family. So we have Mr. Monty King, a licensed clinical social worker. He'll be sharing just some stats tonight and his expertise as a mental health professional. So, Asayu, if you would just take a quick moment to introduce yourself, and then you can pass it to Mr. King.
Okay, I'm like Nikki said, I'm Sonia Anthony McGee. That's my beautiful niece. And I'm so excited that she invited me to the show to talk about the traumatic experience that we had in our family with the murder of my son, and to get it all together is as a domestic violence issue that people don't really like to talk about because it's domestic violence towards men, but it is a touchy subject, and I'm very happy to be here today. Now, since the event happened, the murder happened, I've done a lot of advocacy work. I'm currently with a group called Moms Over Murder here in Nashville, Tennessee, and we do a lot of work. We do legislation. We just help moms because every day, really every day, we can get a new mom. Honestly, we can, and that's just here in the Nashville area. So, we that organization is one for mothers who have lost their children to gun violence mostly, but we do also have a few who have lost their children to like overdoses and other things like that, but mostly it's for moms who lost their children to gun violence. It's a very safe space for moms that you can talk about anything. We have people there that will help you through the court processes. We get speakers to come, mental health advocates. It's a really great group, and I'm glad. I always tell them, like, when we have our meetings. As a matter of fact, we had one tonight. Ladies, I'm sorry I missed it, but I'm doing something else. That I hate that I met them, and because of the circumstances that we have to meet, we all have lost our children to gun violence, and but at the same time, we've become a sisterhood, and I'm glad that I met them at the same time. So I hate it and I love it at the same time. And we do a lot of work here, and it's helped me in my healing process so much. That is a place where I can go and I can actually say what I'm feeling, through the whole 5 years. It took like 4 years for us to get the young lady locked up. So if you guys can just imagine the kind of feelings that and the emotions that I went through. But when I would go to, you have a therapist, and there's just so much you want to say to your therapist. But at the Moms of a Murder meeting, I could say exactly what I felt, even if it was not what politically correct or even nice. I don't say that. So, they don't judge because they either felt the same thing or feeling the same thing. So I'm really thankful that I found that program, and it was just, I know that God really placed me with them. It was just a farce on how I found them. It's crazy. Like she said, my son was murdered. Courtney was murdered on October 12th, 2020. Um, it's just it really, I'm still, sometimes I wake up in the morning, grief it's a sneaky little thing. Like some mornings you're like, oh, okay, to be absent from the body, be present with the Lord. And some mornings I get up, I'm like, wow, I cannot believe this happened to me. And I can definitely say that I was angry with God for it. Oh my God, I was so mad at him. And I just couldn't understand, like, why me? And then until I started being receptive, and then, God was like, why not you? Then he was like, why me? Same thing. Why me? So I had to look at it in so many different ways. And I've had the time to look at it, and I had to sit with myself and do it. But I'm really glad that, I'm just happy to be here, Nikki. I'm glad that you wanted to do this segment. And, like I said, Courtney was my firstborn son. I'm a mother of six, three boys, three girls. And I would tell anybody that grief, when you experience grief in your immediate family, you're either the family's gonna grow closer or it's gonna disperse. So I think mine was the latter, and it's taken a great toll. But now, like I said, we're in the healing process. We are healing, and we're able to talk to each other. And you never know what the next person's thinking until you really actually have to talk to them. And there's anger and resentment, and oh my God, I wish I could have been there. I could have saved them. And you go through so many emotions, and it's just crazy. And I still, to this day, I'm like, wow, I cannot believe that this happened to me. Like, but at the other side, I'm like, God must really have something special for me, because there's no way he would make me, allow me to go through this. And at the end, I'm just like, okay, that's it. No, so I really had to open up and surrender, and just, be. It's just, grief is something that'll take you on a journey, you know.
Mhm.
And I won't even lie. I'm glad that I've had this journey, and I'm gonna make all the good out of it that I can. I've done some really great things in the organization that I'm in. The ability, the opportunity to legislate here in Tennessee for victims who have lost their children to murder or whatever, any kind of murder, not just gun violence. But it's been really fulfilling, and I won't say I'd do it all over again. I don't want to say that, but here I am. So
Right.
it's whenever I can. We do whatever we do. We go different places. And you start advocating for one thing, and then you end up advocating for other things as well. And I would say this, in on my journey, I came across a thing where my group has taken me, that I began to advocate for things that were like total contrast of what, my son being murdered. You advocate for murderers even. So, like I said, it's been a journey, and it's been something where I had to really take a look at myself, and it's been one of forgiveness, um, love. You have to love. I'm learning a lot about it on another level, not just you gotta love your enemies or those that despitefully misuse you. You really have to examine yourself when something like this happens to you.
Right.
Um, Either you're gonna hate and be grudgeful for the rest of your days, or you're gonna be like, I gotta forgive these folks so I can be okay.
Mhm.
So it's been that kind of thing in contrast, just it's been that, and that's the journey I'm still on. I'm not all the way there yet, but
Mhm.
I would say that I'm closer than I was when it first started,
Yeah.
and I think that. So, like my son, he
Mhm.
was fun loving. He's a father. He had many children, and I'm so glad that he left those reminders for me. My grandchildren, I love them so much, and I try to spend as much time with them as I can. The young lady that murdered him, I still haven't seen my grandson the since she got out of jail, and I had to give him back to her. So y'all keep me in your prayers, and I just hope that I know one day he'll return or whatever. He's like 5 years old now. He's like 8 months old when it happened. So I miss you, baby Logan. And I guess his siblings miss him. His cousins miss him. His aunts and uncles miss him. We all miss him. And so, but I dare not let it just be my son was murdered. I really, really want to keep working, and I want his children to do the work as always. I mean, in the future. Um, and I try to keep his name alive to them, so that they will be a unit because, I'll say this, he did have children by a few different women. So but I still want them to love each other, know that they're sister and brother. So, and I want them to be able to like, you're going to have to just do the work, start volunteering and whatever you have to do. It doesn't have to be something, it can be anything, but just do some social work, put in some time, you know. And like I said, he was a happy person. He was funny. He loved to joke, and he was Batman. He would dance, and he was just a fun guy. He loved to be with
Right.
his family, and I would say like the first time we had a family gathering, and I felt so weird. Like I was like, man, my son should be here. And then, I said, I mean, grief takes you through so many emotions. It really does. So, I'm here now, and I try to talk to mothers who have gone through it, who are going through it, who have court cases, what to expect in the courts here in Tennessee. It's really interesting. um, just anybody who wants to talk, because sometimes, like I said, when you lose a child like that, everybody is not going to be receptive to what you're really feeling. So it's good. I tell moms that I talk to, and I have talked to a few of them. You can say whatever you want to say to me. I'm not here to judge you because I've been through it and I know what it's like. I know I hate them or this, that, and I wish they were dead or, I mean, all kind of things would come out. I've heard it all almost. So it's nothing shocks me, but at the same time, after you say that, I'm gonna give you a hug and we can pray, or we can do this and we can do that, but we, feel it and let it go. That's what I say, and we're gonna go to the next step. We're not gonna, like you said, unpack it and leave it there. Let's make a positive out of it at the end. I mean, that's it. That's about it. I love my son. I miss him so much, but his memory lives on. Like I said, we just did
Yeah,
a memorial where we planted an apple tree, and all the kids were there, and they lit a candle. Well, not all the kids. Well, a lot of the kids were there, and it was just a really great thing. And that's just the
yeah.
thing I want them to keep with them. To like be always
Mhm.
be together and always be available to light each other's candle. Even if it dims or if it goes out, relight it for your brother or your sister.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
Nice.
All right. So, Mr. King, feel free to introduce yourself, and then we will hop into some stats about domestic violence.
Well, Auntie Sonia, thank you for your story. Thank you for sharing. It's hard to follow you with all that you're doing and what you've been able to share with us so far. I appreciate that. Um, I'm a lowly social worker. Uh,
Not lowly.
I'm a lowly social worker. I went to Florida State. Uh, Not so great in football right now, but they do wonderful with women's softball, soccer, and baseball. I work for the school system as a social worker. I'm also a licensed clinical social worker. I've done therapy for a lot of different individuals. My favorite group to work with is males. I used to work with the Men's Wellness Center here in Jacksonville, Florida. Working on trying to be able to open up and work with men under a different organization. But that's pretty much. I got a wife, two babies, and a mother-in-law. So all my time is accounted for pretty much, and I just try to do the best I can for my children and try to give them um, the best roadmap that I can.
Awesome. So we are going to just start with some stats as we begin, because I do believe in giving relevant information. I want you to know what the numbers say, in addition to the heartfelt conversation that we're going to have tonight, because I think pairing the two really helps to drive the message home of domestic violence and how we should engage in awareness and prevention. So Mr. King is going to share some stats here.
All right, all
Um,
right,
and he's talking from a man's perspective about domestic violence in this segment tonight. So go ahead, Mr. King.
all right. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Anthony. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Domestic violence stats. Yeah, it includes both relational stats and home stats. Now, what does that mean? That means that domestic violence can be between a son and a mother. It can be between a brother and a sister. It can be between a husband and a wife. It can be between a child and their grandparent. That's how domestic stats are accumulated, but then they're broke down when it becomes to a relationship. Relationship wise, women are 1 in 4 uh, times more likely to be a part of domestic violence. When it comes to men, 1 in 7. Physical violence is 24% of women experience that, 14% for men. Stalking, 1 in 10 for women, 1 in 50 for men. Rape, 1 in 5 for women. These are just, if you go through and you're standing in the grocery line and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, one of those 4 people have experienced domestic violence. If you look at men, if you're just sitting in church and you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, one of those 7 men. Now that's an alarming number when you sit down and you're thinking about how many people we come in contact, how many people may be going through and having to live with domestic violence. Some of the research found that physical violence, sexual violence, stalking, all of that is higher for bisexual men and women compared to heterosexual men and women. And
Hmm.
directional violence is just violence, mutual compact. That's where the police come, everybody has a mark, so everybody goes to jail. That is more common in blacks than in whites, and also is more common in blacks and Hispanics, and in just about just every other race group. So blacks have a more higher likelihood of it. If you just think about the situation with the track star, Miss Shakari Richards, I believe it is. She had a situation where she was in the airport. The young man that she was with was accused and targeted, and the police approached him first, as if he was the one that was causing the situation. But he really was the victim of the violence. And you got to ask yourself, how often is that used as a tool against men of color? So that kind of opens us up to just some of the statistics, a little anecdotal note, a situation where it's relevant, is real, but it's not something that's readily spoken about. All right. What does domestic violence look like against men? It's physical abuse, it's slapping, it is punching, it's scratching, it's emotional and psychological abuse, humiliation, threats, criticism, belittling, verbal abuse, yelling, calling out him his name, um, coercive action, trying to control him, limiting his contact to his friends, controlling his money, sexual abuse, asking him for, forcing him to do things that's not a part of his will. Financial abuse, that's one abuse that a lot of black men go through, withholding his money, preventing him from being able to go to work. A lot of black men in low-income situations are used as childcare. They may get with a young lady, and the young lady say, "I need you to watch my kids." And a lot of older women choose to not target, but they go out with younger men who haven't established a life yet, and in the process, they use them as a form of childcare. Also, we got to look at financial abuse. A lot of times in a lot of homes, the woman is in control of the finances. So she'll prevent that man from being able to have access to him outside of his paycheck. But most of his paycheck still may go to her. Parental alienation. That's another big one. A lot of men want to be a part of their child's life, but the relationship to be able to have with your child can be skewed when it comes to the court system. The court system doesn't really favor the man when it comes to child rearing, even though he may have more skill, even though he may be more apt to be able to deal with the social and emotional development of that child. He may be the one that the child will choose, but he will be as the court would say, it would not be able to be the one who could actually have custody of the children. And a lot of times creates that conflict between the child and the parent, to where there's two different sets of rules. So now it's really in a situation where no one's really raising that child. And that breaks that man's heart. So a lot of times men just stay for the child. I know you hear a lot of situations where men get, people have been married 20, 30 years. The children have grown and left the nest, and they divorce. A lot of that takes place because there is all those different types of verbal abuse, sexual abuse, coercion that's going on, emotional and psychological abuse, all of that built up over that time. And it finds its way to where the man just wants to be there for his children. Most black men really want to take care of their children, but they can't fight the courts because it's all skewed in a direction for the female. False accusations. That goes back to that track star, Miss Richards. She made those threatening and false claims. Most of the time when law enforcement arrive, their first cue is to look at the man. What have you done? What did you do? And he could just be just as innocent and bloody. and the woman can stand over there unscathed, but with a scowl on her face, tears running down her eyes, and say, he hurt me, but she has no evidence. So those false accusations really hurt as well.
Wow. Wow. And I'm sure we'll get to it, just some things that men can do to avoid these kind of dynamics, these relational dynamics. I'm sure we'll get to them a little bit later. So, what are some of the various ways men experience DV that we may not consider? Oh, sorry.
Emotional entrapment. They feel obligated. I gotta be here. I gotta do this. There's no way out. How many times have you told a man that he's trapped? He's stuck. Social ridicule and disbelief. Man reporting being hit or abused. And they look, oh man, that's just playing. Oh man, she can't hurt you. Weaponization of stereotypes, exploiting gender norms, shaming him, or using fatherhood to control him. Isolation through shame. And I got to keep going back to the legal system. If Black men are targeted in the juvenile justice system, they're targeted in the adult criminal justice system. What makes us think that they're not targeted in the family court system? So it's just different for Black men as we grow and go through life trying to be right, trying to have a family. Domestic violence against men has not been publicized or talked about as it has been with women. There's a social stigma in the lack of gender norms. Men are stronger. They should be in control. But they are outside of the legal system. But once you bring the legal system into it, law enforcement, judges, courts, the average Black man has a difficult time navigating those systems. And it's hard to be able to afford to navigate through those systems. Domestic violence, historically, context is it's always been women who are the victims. But you can go all the way back to what's that singer, Al Green? And that was a situation where it was horrible, but a lot of people jokingly acknowledged that was okay. But had the roles been reversed, Al Green would have never sung another song because he'd have been in jail. Underreporting is a big issue because it's hard to have that conversation with another male, especially in that law enforcement role, or a female who's in that law enforcement role who is used to being around a lot of dominant alpha males. The media portrayal, if you look at the news, just about it's very rare that they show a Black male standing up there with his family, doing what he's supposed to be doing, following the law. That portrayal is not really existent. So it's hard to be able to publicize what's going on if the Black male is the tough guy. He's the one that's supposed to be the protector, or he is the one who is out in the neighborhood causing mayhem. And there's a resource imbalance. The one thing I did like about being at the Men's Center is it gave men a place to come and just talk. It's easy to have a conversation with a therapist, but it's easier to have a conversation with a therapist who can relate. I saw being in therapy and practicing therapy with guys as being in a barbershop with a clinical twist. You can be able to share your thoughts, share your feelings, share your mindset, and not be really criticized or ridiculed by today's standard outside of your culture. Just because a black man sits across from a woman who's black doesn't mean that they have the same perspective on the situation. It has to it has to be a point to where they are able to connect. And that's a lot of where black men just lose touch with domestic violence, being able to put out what their identity is, what their family is supposed to look like. That's a very hard struggle for black men.
I love it. Thank you so much for that. And I heard a lot, I want to say the cultural norms that exist Black community, so maybe you'll hit on those a little bit more later. But we do want to jump into some questions about Courtney. And so I want to start with you, Auntie Sonia. I'm going to unmute you. And first question is, um, would you just kind of tell us who Courtney was as a son? And you kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier.
Mhm.
I'll share my perspective. He was such a joker. Like he was always telling jokes, cracking jokes. I remember when we were little, you know, I remember, and I don't know if it's like a family thing, like wearing as few clothes as you can when we have family reunions and whatnot, but just always telling jokes. He was like the life of the party. So just kind of share who he was as a son, who he became as a dad, as a sibling. Just share a little bit about him.
Like I said, he's my firstborn, the oldest son of 6 children. He, like you said, he was a jokester. He was quite a jokester. He would call me in the morning and just be on the phone and be like, "Ma, ma, mommy, ma, ma, mom, mom, mother, mom," for like minutes, like early in the morning, like 5, 6 in the morning. And then he was like, "I didn't want anything," and just hang up. So, he was the first person. He was the person that made me get an iPhone. He just shamed me into getting an iPhone. He's like, "You got to get an iPhone so we can FaceTime. You can FaceTime the kids and see them." So I did that. And, he was just, he liked family. He loved family. He always wanted to have a cookout. Hey, let's all meet at Aunt Queen's house and I'll bring this and everybody else bring that. He was a family man. And like I said, he had a lot of children, but that was where he loved to spend his time with them, whenever he had an understanding with the mothers or things were going right. But I would say this, he did have a lot of issues with that. And that will be an issue with any man that has multiple children by multiple women. So that was an issue for him. And I know he wasn't happy about that. But otherwise, he was a brother. His siblings loved him. Um, his friends are, even now they still contact me. And from high school, a few from college. He went to Lane College in Jackson, Tennessee, and just the people that he worked with at his job. So his kids, like his kids are growing up. They're graduating high school. Madeline just went to the Navy. We just went to our graduation there, and I just sit there at those ceremonies and just think, man, you should be here. You really should be here, because I know he would be there. One of my grandsons just sent me a message the other day. It's like, "Grandma, I had my first basketball game. You know, Courtney should be there. He would be there." He was telling me how well he did. He's like, "We still lost, but I was the MVP." I was like, "Oh my God, that's really great." And so just things like that, when it happens, and it just makes me, I really want to. That encourages me to like keep his name alive with the kids and the family and stuff, and to do things in his honor, and to just go forward with advocating for um, victims of violence and stuff like that. So, it's always something good that comes out of a tragedy, even if, it's not, tragedy is just tragedy. It is what it is, and trauma. So, but you just try to, it's about your mindset. Like, you really have to change your mind, a renewing of your mind, honestly, in the natural and the spiritual. So, um, I'm just thankful that I've had that. And, Courtney, he'll always be my baby. And, you know, forever 33, just that, I hate that. I hate what happened to him. I hate what happened to the family. But, I look at it sometimes, maybe even like it was he sacrificed himself. Like my head has been so many, so many directions in thinking, so.
Trying to make sense of it. Yeah.
So it's been a lot. He was a really good guy. I got so many calls from people that I didn't even know, and messages and texts and stuff. Oh, Courtney did this for me, and he did this. One like young lady called, like, when I was during COVID, like, he got me a hotel room, and he just told me to stay as long as I needed. I was like, wow, and it just made me look at him in a different way. The positive things. Like, people will always want to say what you did negatively, but rarely. And then maybe they didn't know to say positive, because he didn't just like, oh, I did this for so and so. So to me, he was a great guy. In my book, he was. I don't know how others think about him, but he was a really great guy. He was cool, and I just thank God that I was able to spend, during the last few months. Man, God is just good. He just allowed me to spend a lot of time with him. I was at his house a lot, and I would be down there doing this, and the kids would be over, and like it was just how it's supposed to be. I would just say, So God, I think God was just preparing me, even just preparing us as a family. Like, we didn't know like something was going to happen, but the time that we were able to spend and how we were able to spend it, and the things that we talked about and did, like, that was just great. And I'm thankful for that.
So tell us, you've heard some of the things that Mr. King has shared, the stats and whatnot, some of the signs, but what were some signs that you saw, maybe that you hinted towards him, that you tried to inform him about, as far as the young lady who did take his life? What were some signs that you saw in his relational dynamics that
Immediately when he was talking about that, my mind went back, and I remember seeing scratch marks on his neck and on his back a lot, and I was like, "Dang, like, what's going on, Courtney?" And he was like, "Always, oh, it's nothing." And that's one of the stats that were talking about. Men, they don't really want to talk about it. Even his neighbor, when I used to go back to Memphis, and I go over to his house where he was murdered. And one day I was just sitting in the car, having my little grief party. And the neighbor across the street, she was an older lady. She came over and she was talking to me. She said, I told him that one day that girl gonna kill you or gonna hurt you. And he said, oh, Miss, I can't think of her name. He said that she's not gonna do nothing. She ain't gonna do nothing. So they just felt like, I guess he felt like, oh, it's just not going to go that far. I don't know if it was out of, he really didn't think that it would go that far, or I don't know what it was that he thought, but, other people could see like, this is getting worse and worse and worse. Before, a few days before she murdered him, she came over and broke all the windows out of his house, like a week before that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And a week before that, she shot his truck up outside of his house. Yeah. So it was a lot of things. And those things we couldn't even use in court. I remember going to his house, he would do he had this toolbox with all these little different compartments and different color things. And so one day I was just down there, like, I would be visiting, and I put everything, in its little place. And I remember that, I think I called maybe a couple of days later. I was like, hey, I'm gonna come over, da 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 da, for whatever reason. He was like, oh, Ma, don't come over. He's like, He didn't tell me what happened, but he said I got to clean up. I was like, I clean up. I always clean up when I come over here anyway. So what's that? So he didn't want me to know that maybe she had been over and she had strewn the toolbox and all the things all over the place, and that was broke the windows and broke in the door and all kind of things. Like he went through a lot, and I found out in court that she did. In fact, it was she called him 700 times with texts and phone calls the night before she, killed him. So I was like, wow, he was going through a lot. And I didn't even know it because he didn't want to say it. I remember when he told me, because I was down there in Memphis because he had called me. He's like, Mom, can you come and pick up baby Logan? Because she was going back to work and he was in work, or either she had gotten hurt or something. I don't know exactly what it was. So of course I wanted to come get my grandbaby. So came down there, and I knew then it was something, because he was like, usually I'll just pick him up from his house. And so he was like, I don't want her to come over here. So can you pick him up, let her meet you somewhere else? I was like, sure. So that's the day before that I knew it was like really something. I don't know if the kids knew like it was something that was going on. They probably did, but with me, he didn't really express himself unless it's something that I saw. And even if I did see, he still like just brush it off and say, oh, it's not really, oh, it's just this, that, and other, whatever. But the day
So
before.
may I ask you, kind of jump in here?
Yeah, absolutely.
How would you, and Mr. King, I'm gonna ask you to come off mute also. We have such limited time. I'm sorry. But how would you encourage a mom or a sister or an auntie that sees that young man, that brother, that dad, that whoever it is, that man in their life, with some of the same signs, Mr. King, as well as from a mental health perspective, or just a guy to a guy? How would you encourage them to look at the signs for what they are and to take them seriously before something tragic happens? So, Auntie, take a quick moment and then pass it to Mr. King.
How would you asking me or
both of you actually?
I would just say, like, just tell somebody. And even if as a mom, if you see those signs, like you really have to delve in deep, even if you have to call somebody and ask, like, what should I do about this? And Courtney had a thing, he didn't want anybody to call the police on them, because he didn't want her to be in trouble. And so that I was like, yeah, you're gonna have to do something. Like, you really need to do something. But that was the thing as well. Like, I don't want the mother of my child to be put in jail. And he didn't want her to call the police either, because, of how he would be taken as a male. Like, if he didn't have well, maybe he did, like, for child support, he didn't have anything like criminal or anything, but that child support call, like, I'm gonna call the police on you, and that was always like used as a weapon as well. So I would say, just if as a parent, just talk. If you have to find somebody to talk to, if you have to call the police to ask questions, or do it, because it could be detrimental to the situation if you don't. So, if I had to do it all over again, I would definitely do it differently and not just let him like, oh, it was nothing. No, it's something. Even if I take pictures and ask somebody, because you don't have any proof when you go to court. That's another thing that we face. Like, we can't, they even ask, like, did he ever report it? This, that, and the other. So no, he never did. So it never happened in court. So document pictures. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. King.
I would ask you to go to, I think it's slide number 8.
Okay. That'll
give you some of the warning signs. Their behavioral signs, their situational signs,
Yes.
Excessive, a man withdrawing, a man who cancels plans, excessive apologies, his self-esteem is dropping, he expresses guilt, confusion, has a lot of different injuries that he just shrugs off. It's just, I failed, we got into it, it ain't much. If you go to the next slide, those situational things that he goes through, monitoring his cell phone and social media, or his finances, mocking him in public, making him financial dependent, or if he expresses a fear of losing his children if he leaves. Those are different signs. Um, Go to if you can, slide number 11. I mean, slide
Sure.
number 10 and 11, and that'll let you know kind of why they choose to stay. It's the fear and the shame. It's the love and hope, because if that's the mother of your child, you're really hoping that everything's going to work out. You're hoping that there's going to be a level of peace and decorum that's going to exist, so you can be able to put forth the best you can for your child. It's the stress and the trauma. Temporary problems make them stay. Financial and housing dependency. If that man is in a lot of women make more financially than men do. So if they're financially dependent on that woman, and there's not really that support system that exists out there. So a man in a domestic violence situation, whether it be physical, emotional, psychologically, it's where he it's not a lot of resources for him to be able to work through how to get out. And what can we do? That's the next slide. You can go to the next slide. Approach them with empathy, not with confrontation. Don't go up and swell up at them and make them believe that they have to do something, because they didn't get in this situation overnight, and they're not going to get out of it in one fell swoop. You have to validate what they're going through. Provide them information, not ultimatums. Just share your thoughts, share your feelings, share what you're seeing. You didn't make the decision for the man to get in that relationship, nor can you make the decision for him to get out. And if you feel he's ready, talk about a safety plan. What can you do? What are your options? And when they call, be there for them. And you have to respect what they have going on, their timeline. But if you're in the process of helping somebody, you got to make sure that you're taking care of your own self. You can't use all of that you have and not be able to have anything else to give, because then you'll end up being tired and resentful.
Thank you. So we have about 10 minutes, unfortunately, but I feel like we've hit on a lot of the questions that I wanted to ask Adesanya. I will ask, just kind of, you can take us out, but you've moved into an advocacy space, obviously. And actually, let me back up. I think you were going there. Do you mind kind of sharing a little bit of the day, kind of the situation that led up to the murder, and then kind of bring us to where you are now as far as advocacy? And you talked about it earlier. So moms over murder, and in the court system, legislation, all of those things, and maybe take about 5 minutes or so to bring us up to speed.
Calling me and texting me, and I was, like I said, he had already previously asked me if I could keep the baby. So I came to Memphis and went to pick him up at my sister's house. And I did notice that the young lady was, she wasn't herself. Usually be a hug and, oh, la, la, la. And it wasn't like that. She was just kind of put off, but I didn't make a big deal out of it because I was getting my grandson. So I get him, it's probably about 10 o'clock in the morning, get my grandson, we go out, we do all these kind of things. And I'm getting ready to go back to Nashville, drop by my sister's house. We're sitting over there just chilling. And she's looking on Facebook and it's like, oh my God. And she's like, I'm in the car trying to put the car seat in. And she's like, girl, look at this. And she's like, the text, the post said somebody that she killed Courtney Anthony. So it was like, girl, nobody would ever do that. We didn't even take it seriously. And she was like, well, let's just ride over there, because she didn't live far. So we went over and of course, the yellow tape was there, and that's when the tragedy started. Well, that's not when it started. That's when it started for me. Um, it was just crazy, and I was just there in Memphis, and it was like I said, it was it was a hard time for me. And I would just say now I'm healing. I'm on a healing journey. Like I said, I'm with Moms Over Murder, also with the group Heal People, Heal People. And we do a lot of advocacy work. We do a lot of, we do legislation. We do, you know, community organizing. We do a lot of things, and it's very helpful. And it has been very helpful for me as well as for the community. And I would just say, like, if you're going through this, any mother or a sibling or anybody, a cousin that knows or sees anything like that, you have to, like you said on the slides, like, approach with empathy. Don't confront. All of these things make so much sense to me now. Respect his timeline, you know, all of these things. Help with safety and planning. You know, I could have, I always think about, well, I could have really just talked to the police or this, that, and other, or, you know, just reached out to somebody and said something. But, you know, hindsight is 50/50, 20/20, or whatever you want to say, but it is what it is. But now I'm ready to help anybody that I can, in a healing space, as you say, in many ways. I'm one, you know, healing, not just for myself, you know, healing for others. And I mean, I'm just here for people who ever want to question me. I'm in a space. I mean, I'm not crying every day anymore. So, you know, I'm stronger that I can even talk about it. I can say his name out loud. And I do it. And I'm just here. Like, I want to help. I want to be able to help anybody that I can who is going through this, in any kind of way, whoever it is, another mother, a sister, or a brother, or a father, whoever it is, a child. You know, a lot of times we talk about moms and siblings and stuff, and we don't talk about what the kids go through. You know, my grandchildren have experienced a lot of things, you know, and I can only imagine it's because of, you know, their father was killed and how they know about it, and they know the young lady that did it. So it's a lot of healing taking place, and I'm glad to be a part of it. Like I said, even though it's a tragedy, I'm glad to be in the healing process, in that area. Like I said, I'm glad that you brought this platform, and it's really great. And I encourage anybody who is going through this, like, really talk to somebody about it, young man. You're not weak. You're not, don't even think about that. Save your life. I'll say that. Save your life. You know, don't think that it's, you know, she's not going to come or he's not going to, whatever. It's just think about your life, and how it's not normal for somebody to do things like that. So I'll say that. Save your life, really, honestly, from a real point of view, save your life. I think about when I heard that she had called him like over 700 times, call and text him, I was like, oh my God, like, that had to be terrifying. Like, at work, at home, you know, even calling his job, like, that had to be, she was like stalking him. And that's terrible. So save your life, young man. Just do that.
Thank you. Mr. King, do you have anything you want to add in there?
Love doesn't hurt.
Mm.
Love doesn't wound. Love should not be confusing. It When it comes to domestic violence, uh, you always have problems in relationships. There's always, you know, your side, their side, the truth. But it should not leave you to where you cannot be able to move forward with your life, and for those who are dependent on you. So I say that if you are in a situation, uh, first first seek help. Be honest with yourself, because what you're doing is you're really protecting Auntie Sonia. Your son would have been protecting his children. your grandchildren. And that's the ultimate thing. I believe my time is finite, so I have to protect my children. And I protect other people's children through my job. So that's what you have to do. And love should not have you in a position to where you say, it ain't that bad. It ain't that bad. It's all right. That's just how she showed me that she loved me. That's the way she say, I love you. You know, as you walk into the ER with a tooth in one hand and the ear in another.
Jesus. Wow. So we did have one question, Mr. King, take maybe about a minute or so. The question was, can you share some exit plan strategies? So what are some things to consider when you're creating an exit plan? We talk about them all the time for women. I don't want to say all the time, but I know I've heard them in regards to women and, make sure you have some money, make sure you have a safe place, all of these different things. What are some things you would share for a man who is trying to get out of a tumultuous relationship dynamic?
For a man, it's a little bit more it's a different type of complication. You have to figure out, what are you ready to sacrifice? Because if you have children and you leave your son, Auntie Sonia might have been thinking about, like you said, I don't want to get I don't want to get her in trouble. I don't want to call the police on her. Because if she gets in trouble, that's part of his exit plan. Now, his son is worried about his mama. And that's not what any man wants for his children to be worried about it. So you have to figure out where you are, what you're willing to do, and who your resources are. If you're in a position where you have financial resources, great. That's part of your plan. If you don't, then you have to find out what it is that you need in order to make the move. If you need emotional support, then that may be family, that could be friends, that could be somebody in the organization. But you also have to start building that documentation. You have to be able to document what's going on. You can't wake up 6 months after you've been going through a tumultuous time and say, I need help, and expect it to happen overnight, because it doesn't happen that way. Miss Sonia, I don't know how long the young lady was in jail after she killed your son, but it doesn't sound like she was in there for too long. Most women get out quicker than men for the same act.
She's in jail now, but she only got 6 years and only was charged with manslaughter.
So, but if it had been a man,
right.
So in being in that situation, the man has to realize when enough is enough, because if he responds with the same aggression, he goes away. He's lost his freedom,
Mm-hmm.
He's lost his children, he's lost his livelihood. So in order, you just got to figure out where you are, what are you willing to do, and what's your support system. Sometimes you can do things yourself. Sometimes you need help. Because I'm pretty sure she wouldn't have done those things at your house, Miss Norman.
Absolutely.
So if you was part of his support system in the exit, Mama is a very safe place. Sisters and cousins are very safe places, because some people feel empowered in the freedom of that ambiguity, just not having those faces or those other people who can stand up in front of them and let them know that this is wrong, even though the man may be saying it himself. So I hope that helps.
Yeah.
That was really, really good. Actually, if you could just talk a little bit more about that ambiguity, that gray area of when you keep stuff to yourself versus sharing in your safe places. Desanya was a safe place. And I don't know if maybe over time, Auntie, that you saw those conversations, those early calls in the morning kind of, wane off or fall off, like the closer he got towards the end. That's probably not the best word. I'm sorry. But did you see any changes like that happened between y'all's dynamic because he was trying to protect this dynamic on the other side?
I think actually on the flip side, Nicole, it was more. He called me more.
Mm-hmm.
He called me more, and
Mhm.
we talked more. And like I said, I think that was just God preparing me, and just with me not even knowing, like I get to spend this time with him because before it wasn't, I didn't get that. I would like when I would just pop up and just say, "Oh my God, you got scratches all over your neck," or "You got where you get all these scratches from?" or this, that, and the other. How'd your window get broken? Or why is the door, you know, facing broken? It could be. It was a lot, and then like when I would start going, I would notice things, but he never came to me like, "Well, this right here has happened," because I'm sure, like, if she was fighting him, he was probably fighting her too, and I would definitely say it was a toxic relationship, but you know, it just never dawned on me that it was like that serious. Even the day that she dropped the baby off, like I just sat and thought about this girl hugged me and a few hours later just went and murdered my son just like that. Just like that. I was like, wow. And you never know what people are thinking. You never know what's going on in their mind. I 100% feel that she premeditated that, and you know there's no doubt in my mind that she did. That was all in her mind to do that. And it's just, it's crazy, but it is. Here we are, and here I am advocating for people who have lost their children, and I would never in a million years thought I'd be in this position, ever, ever, ever. And even the more that I advocate, the more that you can advocate, because it's always something that you can advocate for with this going on. There's so much that I've learned and been experiencing when I got into this role. So no, I can't stress it enough. Say something,
Mm-hmm.
contact somebody. Just be very open. If you have sisters and brothers, talk to them. Because men tend not to, like I said, they don't. It's always nothing, like you said. So you got to say something. Y'all got to save our lives. And another thing I would add that's just been a part. We got to start learn how to respect each other as just people and human beings. I hate to just say in the black race, but we have to. We got to get back to that. And and I feel like it's going to happen. I think things are going to turn around, and I do, with programs like this and people like you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
King. Yeah,
Thank you.
things are going to get better. So I'm very hopeful. And, even though I had to lose my son, I'm going to do the work so that nobody else will lose theirs. That's my desire. That's what I want to do, you know, in this space.
Mr. King, kind of talk about that, and I want to call it manipulation, and I believe that was in one of the slides, but manipulation and the power of it if you don't address it, to land us in things in situations like this, if you don't mind, and then we'll wrap up.
Um, Manipulation is something that's taught and learned. A lot of, I'm just going to say it, a lot of moms teach their daughters how to manipulate men. And they learn that, and they go out and they practice that. And eventually, the student becomes the teacher. Why are you looking at me like that, Miss Sonia? Eventually, so in that respect, a lot of young men don't grow up with their fathers, so they are not taught what to look for. They're not taught how to address those behaviors. And as manipulation occurs, it could be using finances, like I said. It could be using children. It could be using the threat of law enforcement. It could be using the threat of the court system. All of that is used in order to try to restrain his belief of choices. Because you do have a choice. But when you put all those other things on top of it, I'm going to take half your check. I'm going to live with half my check. That's part of that manipulation. Oh, you're only going to see your kids on the weekend. See them 5 days a week now. That's part of that manipulation. Oh, when the popo get here, we really going to have a conversation. That's part of that manipulation. And what is it, Johnny Taylor, when you go downtown, you look that judge in the face, you're going to hate the whole human race. It's part of our culture. It's in the music. So it's being taught. It's overt conversations that women get a chance to have. Beauty parlor, nail salon, sitting around the table talking. When a man outside barbecuing, that's what some of the women talking about around the table while they cooking. But men don't really have that place. That's why I like men's counseling and men's wellness. It gives us a place to be able to share our thoughts, our feelings. To let us know that because a lot of times you think, I must be crazy. I'm the only one going through this. But you're not. And it's not till we get to a point as a community, as a culture, like you say, Miss Sonia, that we choose to work together. To where those tools of control won't be there to keep us down. I hope that answers you.
It did. It absolutely did. So I want to give both of you maybe a minute or so, any final words, if you have any, and then I will take us out.
I would just like to go to slides 15, I think slides 15 and 16 and 17. Those are just some of the resources that are available. If you could go to the next slide, please. These are some of the local resources that we have here in Jacksonville: legal aid, Sheriff's Office Victim Services. Hubbard House actually helps to serve men as well. If you can go to the next slide, you were talking about safety planning, legal help, mental health support. These are just some resources that if men get in those situations that they feel like they need help. If you can get 3 of those 4 bullets, he's headed in the right direction. These are the things that he should be looking for: his safety plan, legal help, in order to try to figure out. He may have to have an order of protection. He may have to get that done. Some mental health support. Why is he choosing this as the proper way to have a relationship? Because he has to retrain himself to think how he's supposed to be treated. Victim advocacy and financial and housing stability. So those are just the things that I wanted to leave with you. That's basically the roadmap, the exit plan. Those 5 things help you to find your way out. Some of the things you can do yourself, some of the things you may need help with. Thank you.
So good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Auntie Saya, any final words?
I guess I would say that my final words would be, you had a question on here. It was like, what was the impact of his death on me? It was traumatic. It was trauma that I had never, ever experienced before. And it broke my heart. Literally, it did. So another question is, honestly, I can't speak for his siblings or anything, but I can say this, that the things that I saw, the many changes that they went through concerning his death and still are going through and working through. So, murder, I would just say that it takes a toll on a family. And doing advocacy work, like I said, I think it was just a blessing for me. It's teaching me how to forgive. I've been more forgiving, and I've run across many other, like the program I'm in now, the Moms Over Murder, and we also have a program called Heal People, Heal People. There are so many others that I've done work with, where I'm really actually advocating for people in jail, in prisons, even other murderers, people who have murdered. So it's a full circle thing. It's I would say, just if you experience something like this, don't just look at the negative and it's happened. Just don't stay there. Keep walking, keep going through. Get up, walk, and walk it through, even if, spiritually, physically, whatever it is. I would say, and another thing that really helped me, and I know these people, they don't really have a clue. When my son was first murdered and I had to come back to Nashville and I was alone, and to get out of the bed, I found this group called Black Girls Run. And I started running with them, well, trotting or whatever. And they would get literally at 4 a.m. in the morning, they would meet and run and walk and stuff. And that really pulled me out, where I was able to just get out of the bed and stuff. So if you're a mom or you're a family member that's going through this and someone's been murdered, tragically taken from you, find something to help you, whatever your faith is, delve into it, just get out. I also, the way that I met the young lady, another young lady in the Moms of a Murder group, I had replied to a Facebook post where a young lady was saying, any women that want to get into construction, you guys come. And so I go there, and the girl was saying, oh, wow, this is Rafia, and she just lost her son, like just months away from how my son was murdered. Like, I think hers was like in June, my son was in October. So we were like, oh, wow. And so we were looking at each other, and that's how I got in the Moms of a Murder group. So just get up, continue to walk through, and, things are going to get better for you. I believe it for you. So it's going to get better, y'all. We're going to stop all this murder and mayhem. It's going to stop, especially in the Black community.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you both for sharing with us. Auntie, when this ends, if you have anyone that would like to contact you, if you don't mind don't feel obligated, throwing your email in there. If someone would like to
Yes.
contact you, if you don't mind talking to anybody. And Mr. King, I know you shared some resources, and I'll speak for Mr. King. He can clarify, but I know his time is kind of limited right now. But he did share some resources, so you can watch the replay to screenshot those slides to see some of the resources he recommended nationally and locally here in Jacksonville.
Okay. Yeah, my email address is S as in Sally, G as in girl, H as in Henry, E as in egg, E as in egg, the number 6, the number 8 at gmail.com. Anybody, if you have any questions, just hit me up, and I would love to talk to you. And if you like to get into advocacy work, hit me up.
I just actually put it in there, so it's already in there. I want to say thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. We did go a little bit over, but I think the conversation was well worth it. I want to say thank you both, Mr. King, for sharing your expertise with us and making this really just a real relevant, conversation. Thank you, Auntie, for sharing what you experienced, what the family has experienced in the aftermath of Courtney's death. Thank you for being honest with us. And I would imagine helping people who are walking through this same journey to just be honest with themselves, the myriad of emotions that you go through, the hurts, the highs, the lows, all of those dynamics. So thank you for sharing with us. And thank you all for tuning in. I do ask that you please hit the share button. It's not just for likes. I think this is just really excellent information, and content and context that I would hope we all want the men in our lives and the women, because women can take the same information and apply it. But I would hope that we would want the men in our lives to be safe, right? So share this information with the men that you know who may need to hear this and hear that, you know, stay safe. I think that's the theme of tonight, stay safe, right?
Yes.
With that, I don't have anything else. Please just check our social media. We have a lot of upcoming events organizationally. We have a Community Tech Day coming up on the 8th of November, on the 12th for our girls, and that's anywhere across the country because it's virtual. We're having the period talk with Dr. Davis Jenkins. She'll be finishing up part 2 of the conversation we started last month. We have Serve Day coming up. We have the Florida Classic for our students who have met their goals. We have pre-employability skills training with Ms. Alfreda Boney. We have a lot going on to grow your student and to grow families. We have our career exploration coming up. We'll be focusing on government and military careers. So tune in. Shoot us an email if you have questions, littlepeopleserving@gmail.com, and we'll go from there. But I will say good night to everyone. Thank you all for tuning in. Please hit the share button, and y'all have a beautiful night.
Good night.